actually, never mind. Instead of blow drying, what I'm going to do is a second test while this is drying, and then we'll blow dry them both together. This other test is going to be if we did it the opposite way. By the way, don't feel you have to do these tests. These are just, you know, if it feels like you want a little bit of practice, and if you have enough paint, or if you don't have enough paint, you can always mix more. But we're going to do it the opposite way and see what happens there. Wait a minute, let's see, what am I doing? So, should I do red to yellow? Yeah, let's do, we're still going to do it upside down, but this time we're going to start with the red, yellow, orange, and peach. So don't put in the really darkest red yet. We'll just start with the bright red. Oh, actually, let's start with the yellow. So right in the center, just paint like a little kind of sun shape, half dome shape of yellow, and make it bigger than what you see there, about twice the size. Then rinse, touch, and let's switch to your bright red, and we're going to go side to side with it. Don't worry about making it look just like the reference. Right now you're just sort of what we call blocking in colors, or getting them where you see them. You can go back and manipulate later. Rinse, touch, and then go back for the mustardy, orangey yellow color and put that in above the red and the yellow. Let the red and the yellow fall into it, and raise it a little bit on both sides, so you're kind of making a rainbow shape here too. Again, nice big drip on the bottom. Then rinse, touch, and finish with your peach color. So we're not going to do any blues right now. Just go all the way to the top with your peach. Rinse, touch, soak up the drip. And then I'm going to go back down here, like I said before, you can manipulate later. So now that you've got your wash in, I'm going to go back down here with a clean brush and just kind of force my yellow into my red by dabbing at the sides, dabbing at the edges. And I also feel like the mustard color kind of got faded out, so only because it's still wet, I'm going to add a little bit more orange. If it's not still wet, you'll really create a line here, so you want to be very careful of that. And I'm just sort of dabbing it in, letting it fall. Then rinse, touch, and it is falling, and the paper's starting to dry, so I'm just going to very, very gently grab that drip by touching the very tip of my brush. I'm trying not even to touch the paper, I'm just trying to touch the drip. That's how careful I'm being with wiping, because if you wipe too much, you end up with kind of a line. Okay, so there's another test, and while this one is still wet, I'm going to turn it back upside down and now get the very tip of my large brush and add that tiny little purple line at the bottom edge there. And then again on the other side. Rinse, touch. And these are both pretty wet, so now I'm going to blow dry them. Just use a hair dryer. Hold it about 12 inches from your picture. Turn it on low and aim it away from the painting at first until you have it on, and then very gently bring it back to the painting. I'm trying to get it so you can see this. And hold it pretty far away, actually. 12 inches is probably too close even. It depends on how drippy your picture is. If it's really drippy, you want it really far away, because you can imagine the water will, the air from the blow dryer will kind of push the water around if it's very drippy. So it's dry enough now to where I can kind of hold it upright and not worry about the paint dripping anywhere. And you can tell it's dry when you can tilt it in the light and it's not shiny anymore, unless your color was so saturated with paint that it's shiny even when it's dry, which is possible with watercolor. It's pretty rare, but it's possible. So a case of that might be my dark blue. I see one little shiny spot still, And you notice how close I'm able to get now with the hairdryer because it's mostly dry, so I don't have to worry about it spreading out anymore. Turn that off. And no, none of it's shiny. So to make sure it's really dry, just use the back of your hand and dab. It's totally warm and dry. If it's even a little bit damp, keep blow drying and never use the front of your fingers because you can leave fingerprints. Not that the back of your hand can't leave prints, they just won't leave fingerprints, which are pretty obvious. So now that I have those two samples, I'm going to try to add the red and orange to this one and the blue to that one and see what happens. And then I'm going to see which one I like best. From there, we can move on to our painting. So let's do, I don't know, I guess let's do this one first. So I'm going to do this upside down. Let's do this one right side up because I'm now painting light to dark. I'm not going to do any blues since I have the blues in there. I'm just going to start with water and go down to about here and then switch to the oranges and reds. So get a big brush full of water, and you want this to be so wet because the wetter it is, the less chance you'll have of disrupting the color that's already there. And you can already see that it disrupted those dark blues a little bit. But what's happening is it's kind of bringing the blues down a little bit more, which I like because it's forcing them to blend. I've got a little too much of a drip right here, so I'm just going to touch that and then switch to my peach. Put just one stripe of that in to make it a little bit pinky. And then I'm going to switch, oh no, wait, I'm sorry, I want a little bit more of my peach. So get almost to the bottom. I still have a little bit too much drip there, so I'm going to soak that up. And then switch to my orange. Put that right along the bottom edge. I'm even going into the peach a little bit. And then my red, my light red, or my bright red, not my dark one. Leaving plenty of space for that yellow on either side. Now I'm going to rinse, touch, and soak up all my drips before I do any yellow or any dark red because I don't want the yellow and the red to bleed together too much. And if I have big drips at the bottom, that's exactly what they're going to do. So now I'm going to make sure I have a clean brush, get my yellow, put that right in the middle with not a lot of drips on my brush, just a pretty small amount of paint on the tip, and just brush it in and kind of force the orange to go away from it. And then I'm going to grab that little tiny brush full of purple on the bottom, oops, just on the very tip of my brush, and brush in a very thin line at the bottom of each side, a little thicker towards the side of the page than it is at the sun. Rinse, touch, and I have a little bit of dripping going on here, so I'm going to get rid of that by soaking it up. And I'm pretty happy with that sample, actually. But since I went through the trouble of making the other one, let's see what happens if I do the blues the opposite way. It's a hot day here, so this is drying very quickly, so I guess I don't need to blow dry it before turning it upside down. So on this one, I'm going to do the same thing. Just start with a clean brush and water right through that sun, right through everything, and then when I get about halfway down, making sure I have a big drip, I'm going to grab my light blue, oops, I need this to be upside down so I can copy it, and drop the light blue in, and go all the way to the bottom with the light blue, then rinse, touch, and grab the dark blue, and put that in at the base and let that bleed in. I'm going to scrape the extra dark blue off my brush because I don't want to run out. Now I'm going to go back and just dab up that extra drip. And you can see the two samples, they're both pretty successful, but I think I like this one better. I like the colors better. Ironically, this one seems to match the painting better, but I like that one better, so I'm going to do that one. You can do it whichever way you want, whichever way inspires you. Okay, so now we can get on to our main painting. And again, don't worry if this doesn't go exactly the way you want. Look at how different these samples are from the painting. They're both beautiful, they're both really different, they're both unique, and whatever happens here will be fine. But in the event it's not, you can always do this again. You can do it multiple times if you want. So, I'm going to start with my peachy color on my large page now. So I'm going to get lots of that color on my brush and just go right across the page. Wait, is that how I did that? No, I can't remember. Or was I just using water? I think I was just using water, but that's okay. That doesn't really matter because I'm going to put reds and yellows there. Oh no, that's blues. That's blues. Yeah, it doesn't matter there either because the blue is dark enough to cover that up, so I'm going to wipe it off. Oh, the other thing is I need to be upside down. Who says watercolor is not forgiving? Let's see. Yes, so I'm going to start with water. And lots of it. So I've got a much bigger page now, which means I need a lot more water and a lot more paint. So I just dripped there by accident, doesn't matter, it's just water, it won't show. So I'm going to go a little ways down and then grab my peach. I didn't rinse my brush, I just grabbed some because it's a very watery, light color anyway. So it won't make much difference, and I'm going to keep going with the peach. Kind of just bringing it down very evenly. Across, across. It doesn't matter if you go outside your frame, but make sure you cover the entire frame. So err on the side of going out rather than staying too far in. I'm going to add one more brush full of peach to make sure my bottom edge is very, very drippy. Then rinse, touch my towel, grab my light blue, and come back in about a third of the way up and just let that, wow, fall in. Look at that. So fun. And then just keep going. Just keep dropping that in and letting it go. Those big drips on the bottom are really enabling this color to spread and bleed and be just gorgeous. More paint, more paint. And because it's so wet, I know I can go back into here and add more too, and it won't make much difference. Or excuse me, it won't leave brush strokes because it's going to just bleed out. Making sure I hit all the edges of the frame. And I'm almost at the bottom. I want to go most of the way there before adding the dark blue. And now I'm going to scrape the light blue off my brush in case I need it again. Rinse, touch, grab my dark blue and paint that into the bottom edge and up a little bit from, that's right, we're going up a little bit from it. Really let that fall in, fill up the rest of the frame. And then you can go back and add a little bit more if you need to. I need to, I want to. But only do this if your paint is still extremely wet, which it should be if you were using really big drips. Now I really like the quality of that. And unlike my sample, I don't so much mind this line anymore. I know I'm going to go back over it this way with the peachy, orange, yellow, and red. So I'm not going to go back over it with water the way I did the first time. You can totally choose to do that if you want. So I'm just going to go back and soak up my drips. There's some gathering on the side here. But anything I'm brushing off, I know I'm outside my frame. Anything inside the frame, you want to just very patiently touch at. And then when you are satisfied, you can blow dry. And mine is very drippy, so I'm keeping my blow dryer way far away. And again, I'm going to turn it on, not pointing towards the picture, pointing away, and then just very gently bring it towards the picture. And if I see the paint moving around in a way I don't like, I'm going to stop. I'll show you another cool thing you can do with the blow dryer in a minute. Now I can get a little closer because I know it's getting mostly dry, so I don't need to worry about pushing the drips around so much. I'm focusing on the wettest parts. And this one right here is forming a little bit of an edge under it, so I'm going to use the blow dryer and angle it up towards that edge to kind of push it back up into the blob, and that way it dries without an edge. That's the other cool thing I was going to show you in a sample, but as it happens, this one was drying that way, so now I can just show you on the painting. Alright, blues are done. So now we'll do it, paint upside down or right side up, and put in the warm colors, the reds, oranges, and yellows. Where's my brush? Here it is. So for this, we're going to start with water. By the way, I didn't mention, the reason we go over the whole thing rather than just starting here is twofold. One, it helps to kind of give this even a little bit more of a chance to loosen up and find a new life, which is really cool. But that's not the main reason. The main reason is you don't want to start here or even here because you'll have a line wherever you started. Whenever you're doing a wash, which is the name of this technique we're doing, or this is a graduated wash, you want to do it completely because any little brush stroke in watercolor will show up in your final picture. So we're going to start all the way at the top with tons of water. I'm barely touching the paper. I'm just laying in water right now. Lots and lots of water, really puddly. I know the camera won't pick this up, so I'm just trying to describe it as best I can. In fact, I can barely see it. Don't fret if you start to see color coming off. Just try to let it be as much as you can, because I can see brush strokes starting to come off. Oh, and then this drip is so big it's falling. So is that one. So if that happens, you can tilt the board up just to save it from falling all at once, and you can kind of use it to your advantage and tilt the board in the direction you want it to go. But you do want to have a lot of water so that you don't disrupt your beautiful color as much as possible, or you disrupt it as little as possible. So now I'm getting back to kind of the same level here. The whole thing has water on it, and so I'm going to let it tilt again because I'm confident that the drips will stay where they're supposed to be. And then right about here I'm going to switch to the peach color, but I'm running out of peach, so I'm actually going to grab a brush full of water and then some peach, so that it kind of extends the life of it. Not that I couldn't make more, but I'm in the middle of a wash and I don't want to. So I'm going to bring that down pretty far, and you can see the drips look really gray, but the color is coming out beautifully peach, which is exactly what we want. Get lots more peach on the brush and go a little further than we think we need to because we want the orange to have something to bleed into. So I think that's low enough. I'm going to rinse, touch, grab the orange color and put that in a little high, let it fall down all the way to the bottom of the drip, and then up on the right here. I'm going to get more on the right. just let that keep falling. Now I'm going to start leaving space for the yellow in the center, so I'm not going to go any lower with the orange in the center, but I am going to go a little lower on the sides. Then rinse, touch. My drip over here is too large, so I'm going to soak that up. Only too large for the red to really be able to have a voice there, so I'm going to take that out. Grab the red, paint that in all the way to the bottom on both sides, being very careful to try to keep that horizon line very, very straight here. So I'm going to take my time painting in this bottom edge. Don't worry if it is a little bit lumpy, you can fix it later, but try as best you can to keep it very straight. All the way to the bottom, and the red definitely rises on the sides. So I'm going to do that here and here. Rinse, touch my towel, soak up any drips at the bottom. And then here I don't have a whole lot of dripping, so I'm just going to go ahead and put in my yellow. Don't worry about the actual sun here. You're actually going to pull that off later. For right now, you're just getting this yellow glow around it. And paint right into all the colors on either side. I really like what that's doing, but the orange does seem to be infringing a bit more than I want, so I'm going to go back and brush it away. And then lastly, I'm going to grab that dark, dark purple and put in a very thin line with the tip of my brush, starting on the right and just pulling over to the left, getting a little bit thicker as I go. Oops, I dipped down into the ocean there, but like I said, that's okay, we can take care of that later. Try to make it thicker on the right there. There's just a hint of it on the left. Then I'm going to go back and do a little touch-up. So I do feel like, well, my paper is fairly dry in the middle where the peach is, but I'm going to try to put a little bit more peach in, hoping this isn't a mistake. No, that seems to be okay because it's such a light color. This is where it could get ugly if you're using a really saturated color and you put in a color into an area that's mostly dry, as it can start to show brush strokes. And then I want to also brighten up the orange here, so I'm going to paint that in a little bit more on the sides. Let it fall. Rinse, touch. It's falling a little too much, so I'm going to soak up some of those drips. And then I'm going to, since I brighten the orange, I'm also going to brighten the dark red. Oh, sorry, the light red. Okay, so just taking an overall look at it, I can see I have a little bit of a sharp edge forming over here. So I'm going to take just a brush full of water, pointing at that edge, sorry, not a full brush full. Get a full brush full and then just touch your towel a little bit so it's mostly gone, but there's still dampness in your brush. And if this happens to you, then just really gently wipe over the edge. Try not to overwork it because that'll pull the paint off and make you want to go back more. I do the same thing over here, barely touching the paper. And now I feel like that's good enough to blow dry. I'm just going to get rid of this big drip here. Oops. And here we go.